Welcome back, everybody. So my next movie review for you is Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes was released on the 26th of December 2009. It is directed by Guy Ritchie. It was made on a budget of 90 million US dollars and made 524 million US dollars. The cast in this movie is reasonably impressive as well, which consists of Robert Downey Jr. playing Sherlock Holmes. We've got Jude Law playing John H. Hunt, or as we know them as him, Dr. Watson. We've also got Rachel McAdams playing Irene Elder. We got Mark Strong playing Lord Blackwood. We got Kelly Reilly playing Mary Marstein, and we've got other actors in this movie consisting of James Fox, William Houston, plus many others. So in this first installment of the Sherlock Holmes franchise, or this kind of fresh new take of the Sherlock Holmes franchise, we get to follow Detective Sherlock Holmes and his partner Dr. Watson as they put a villain into the gallows in the form of Lord Blackwood. It's not long before he comes back from the dead, and then other mysterious things start happening in London. Now, what do I honestly think about this movie? I think this movie is extremely entertaining, and I'm just about to get into those reasons why I enjoy this movie so much right about now. Okay, so things I like about this movie. There is quite a fairly long list about things I like about this movie, and there is a few dislikes. But now thinking about them, I wouldn't necessarily call them dislikes as such. I just don't think they were not necessarily needed in this movie as such, which I will get into. I've also done a take on this video, and this movie review actually ended up to be 17 minutes long. So I've had to try and adapt this movie review and trying to reduce it down to about 7 minutes, which is going to be really difficult because, like I said, there is quite a fair bit that I enjoyed about this movie. Starting off is the opening sequence. You get to see a police horse and carriage going through the streets of London. You can see that there is a little bit of haste, which is then reflected into the soundtrack music as it slowly gets faster, and you get this sense that this time is of the essence. You get introduced to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson very quickly in this movie, and immediately, as soon as you see those two on screen, you get to see their chemistry and how much they play off each other, and it's really good. There is not very many movies that can get me on board within the first few minutes. Usually it takes about 15-20 minutes for me to actually properly get involved into a movie, but from the moment this movie starts, it does not waste any time in gathering its momentum as such, and it is brilliant. I love the style of this movie. Yes, I know that Guy Ritchie has a very unique style of making movies, but I think the kind of brand new approach they've taken to the Sherlock Holmes kind of franchise in this movie, I think it was just really well done. Like I said, I've got a lot to talk about. I've got to try and reduce this down, so I'm just going to pick out a few little points, bits and pieces of this movie that I really enjoy. So, first bit I really enjoy is that you get that very quick emotional attachment to Sherlock Holmes. He's a very lovable character, and you get very on board with him very quickly. There is a few slow-mo shot scenes in this movie where you get to see Sherlock Holmes thinking about what he's going to do. In other words, there's a couple of times where he's either at a boxing match fighting or he's about to take down a thug, and they slow down a certain amount of the movie so you can understand his thinking. And I get the reason why I did this. They wanted to try and emphasize the fact of how fast he can think, how fast he can figure out a scenario or a problem which he is presented with, which you do see throughout the whole of this movie. And I just think it's a very nice touch, because you do get very much on board with his character very quickly. And throughout this whole of this movie, you're starting to be with Sherlock Holmes there in person. This is how I felt, trying to figure out and you become this kind of detective, and you see clues, you see certain things in the movie, and then you actually start to work out or try and work out what's going on, how things are being done in this movie. Very few movies which can get me involved like that. And I was involved. I was looking for telltale clues throughout the whole of this movie. And like I said, you get this really strong attachment to Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of Sherlock Holmes. He is extremely good. There are some very, very good comedic moments from him and with him. With Jude Law's character, Dr. Watson, their chemistry in this movie, I think is absolutely fantastic. Dr. Watson's got this kind of, what seems to me, he's got his loves to hate him kind of thing. You know, he's trying to help Sherlock Holmes, to try and push him away from just being a detective, to try and get out there in the world. And however much he tries to do that, he also knows he doesn't actually necessarily have to do that. But there's that love-hate kind of relationship between them, and the banter between them in this movie, or the banter between their relationship in this movie, is absolutely fantastic. It really, really works really, really well on screen, and it's probably one of the highlights of the whole of this movie for me. Jude Law's character in here, again, I generally like his character. I like him more when he's interacting, obviously, with Robert Downey Jr., because, like I said, they play off each other very, very well. Oh, there's so much I want to talk about. It really, really is. Like I said, the movie does get you involved very, very quickly. Extremely, extremely quickly. It is quite a fast tempoed kind of start to the movie. There are slower moments in this movie, but as a whole, as a general, you don't notice those slower moments because there's always something going on in this movie. Other parts of this movie I really, really did enjoy is the style and feel of this movie. So, in other words, like I said, Guy Ritchie does have a very unique style of movie making, and it shows in this movie. The London scenery in this is absolutely fantastic. Knowing that this movie is set around 1890, you really get this dark, dingy kind of industrialized kind of London. And to be fair, it works really, really well. There is a lot of industry there. You get to see the poverty, and I just love those kind of olden time, 18th century kind of period, kind of time, kind of movies like this kind of movie. You know, like I wouldn't say like love dramas as such, but you know, like films like from that are set in that era, which are like from, say, like the movie From Hell, that kind of feel of London. I don't know what it is about old time London, but there's something I really enjoyed, and I think they really captured this. When the set design is either CGI or actual set work, it doesn't make any difference to me because I generally like what they were doing, and they really kind of grasped the fact of London at the time. It is about 20 years after the Industrial Revolution. You can see the industry is growing, and there are certain things happening in London at this time, and I just think it's a very, very nice touch. And there's also that kind of very big aspect of attention to detail in London as well, to be honest with you. And it's just, I think it worked really, really well. Other parts of this movie that I liked is Mark Strong. And this Mark Strong playing Lord Blackwood. So he is the main villain in this. He is really, really good as a villain, and he's really, really good as an actor. There is an absolutely awesome scene here, which I really enjoyed him in, and it's near the beginning of this movie where he's looking through some jail cell bars, and he's got a very unique look in this movie. He's got this jagged tooth, and his nose is very, very emphasized. Basically, when he was looking through that, he looks like a dirty, sneaky, conniving little rat, basically. And I think that's probably what they were trying to produce, and I think they really pulled this off really, really well. I love him in this, but herein lies probably one of my first problems of this movie, is you don't get to see enough of him. Now, I'm slowing down on what I'm saying because I'm starting to think a little bit that I'm thinking that maybe less is actually more here. Maybe it left me wanting to see more, but if I saw more, it might have ruined it for me. So the amount of screen time that he had in this, I think probably now thinking about it, it's probably on a very, very good balance. He is very, very good. His presence on screen is extremely good. He is this very creepy, very sadistical, and you've got this very, very big sense that he will not stop at anything in this movie to get to the goal that he wants to get to. And I just think I really, really enjoyed him. But like I said, it was a problem, but I'm just now thinking that maybe less is more with his character. I think if they put him in the movie, it might have spoiled it a little bit. I think they've done it just about right. So I wouldn't class that as a dislike. I'm actually going to class that as a like now, which I think the ideal kind of scenario to go by. Other things I disliked, and this again, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a dislike. I just couldn't necessarily see the point of this person in this movie, which is Mary Marsden, who is Watson's girlfriend or fiance. In this movie, it almost feels like she was just put in there just because of that reason, because Sherlock Holmes has got a love interest in this in the form of Irene Elder. They had to give Dr. Watson a love interest. The problem I've got is that when she was in this movie, she never actually gave anything to this movie. It almost just felt like it's like, hi, I'm Dr. Watson's girlfriend, fiance. I'm going to marry him at some point. And you get that about 4 or 5 times throughout the movie, but that's about as much as she gave to this movie. Now, with Sherlock Holmes's love interest in here, there is a purpose, there is a reason to this, there is a subplot line which is going on with this, which I'm not going to tell you in case you haven't seen it. But it almost felt like she just was there just to be a pretty face, so to speak. And that's how it felt like to me. Now, I could be completely wrong, but it just seemed like every time that she popped up, it's just like going, I am Dr. Watson's girlfriend. Yes, there is resentment there between for Sherlock Holmes, which again I'm not going to go too much into depth with, but she never actually gave anything very specific towards like solving the case or anything to the case to make her character just a little bit more interesting. That's just my own personal opinion. I could be just reading a bit too much into this. Plotline in this, it is a little bit complicated in places. You have to pay attention at certain points of this movie, which I have absolutely no problem with, because it made sure that I wasn't bored in any part of this movie. Even in the slower moments, there's always something going on and you're always looking for something in this movie. And like I said at the start of this video, you're always kind of involved in this movie, and it just makes it very, very interesting. Excuse me. And as a whole, as a general, I just loved everything about this movie. I mean, you know, okay, you could go into this movie and pick faults in this movie, but I don't really want to, because I generally really, really enjoy it. It gets me on board, it got me engrossed. I quite happily sit here for 20 minutes talking about this movie, and I've done a first cut of this movie review already, which was like over 17 minutes long last night, and I've had to reduce this down, and it's still hitting on for 11 minutes because there is so much to talk about. I have a whole list of bullet points in front of me which I want to talk about, but I just chose the main ones through this. The performances as a whole, out the whole of this movie, across the board, I did enjoy. The only one that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I didn't understand, well, I do understand, is Mary Marsden's character in here. I just don't think that she was necessarily needed in here. I'm not saying her performance was bad in any way, I just don't think that her character was necessarily needed in this movie. But I also understand why they put him in this movie as a love interest, as the resentment. There's a little resentment for Sherlock Holmes here. You know, he's basically losing his partner and all that kind of stuff. I get that kind of side of it, but she never actually gave anything to help solving the case, as in like what Irene's character does in this movie. She gives something into this movie. Might be just me, I could be wrong. Like I said, I love the set design, I love everything. It just looks like there was attention to detail into the set design and London, and it's just very, very cleverly written and a very entertaining watch. So, if I was to rate this movie, what would I give it? I would give it a 8 out of 10. I'm sure now I've watched it a couple of times, I could go into that movie and probably pick a few holes, a few faults. I don't particularly want to, but I'm sure, because there's never a movie which is absolutely brilliant with no bads. It's just, as a whole, as a general, by the time I got to the end of the movie, I felt extremely entertained. I enjoyed the performances, and that's hence the reason why I gave it an 8 out of 10. So, on that note, please tell me what you think. Put it in the comments down below as normal. Hope you all have a great rest of the day, whatever you're doing. Please take care, and goodbye.